Now, I turn the Zoom presentation over to Robbi Behr and Matthew Swanson.
All right, thank you, Hanson. I'm going to spotlight us.
You have to look at us real big now.
Real big.
A few things before we start.
Yeah.
We give a lot of presentations to the kindergarten through 4th grade set, and occasionally they see fit to use Zoom tools to scribble on our faces. And we have to use we have to block their permission to do so. I trust that in this crowd, we don't have to do that. But if any scribbling occurs,
you're on notice.
We'll take matters into our own hands.
Yes.
Second of all, because we find it so effective when presenting to younger audiences, to include a drawing tutorial in our presentations, I urge you all to get a piece of paper and a writing implement because we will be drawing together at the conclusion of our formal remarks. All right?
Yes, excellent.
Third of all, we would like to invite our various parents who have joined us here today. You may well know Robbi's dad, Bob Behr, if you've lived in Chestertown for more than 15 minutes, and my mother, Elizabeth Tully, lives on North Queen Street, and my father, who you might have met at some point, and his wife, Judy, my stepmom, are checking in from Palm Desert. So thank you, parents, for joining us here today and swelling the ranks of our crowd.
Yes, it helps when there's so many parents to swell the ranks.
So we're going to give a talk. We're going to show some slides. We're going to talk about our experience making this picture book, Sunrise Summer, which comes out next week. So this is really, truly hot off the presses. And we're going to talk about our experiences in Alaska. We're going to teach you how to draw.
Why don't we just start doing it?
People like to know what's going to happen. And then we're going to do a Q&A.
I like a little surprise left over.
Robbie's going to surprise you.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
So I'm going to share my screen. You're briefly going to get a view of this beautiful island.
Enjoy it for just a moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just for a moment.
All right.
And then hold on. Here we go.
Oh.
All right.
All right.
I skipped ahead a little bit.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So here we are.
Yes.
Here I am.
Friends.
My name is Robbi Behr. I'm an illustrator.
Second greatest job in the world.
The greatest job in the world.
Matthew Swanson on the other side of the room here. I am a writer. I get to wake up in the morning and write children's books, friends. That's my job. I think I'm pretty lucky. Today we're going to talk to you
about Sunrise Summer, which is about.
I shouldn't have told them that before.
I know.
Because now you're telling them.
I feel like we've already gone through this. We're talking about Sunrise Summer, which is about salmon fishing in Alaska.
But before we get to that exciting business, we need to tell you a few things about ourselves so you have the context necessary to fully appreciate it.
All right. For starters,
we're married.
We're married.
Yeah. All right.
It's the two of us together. And just so you know,
yes,
do not feel obligated at any time that you decide to write a book or illustrate a book to marry the person who you're working with. All right.
Not a formal requirement of the job.
Probably ill-advised.
Another thing we don't recommend is having 4 children.
Yeah.
All right.
Don't do that either.
We have Alden, who is in 7th grade. She is 13. Kato, 5th grade, 11. August, 3rd grade, 9. Jasper is 4. He's a real problem. If you've seen him around town, steer clear. He's a real threat.
We also have a ridiculous little dog named Dumbles.
Yes, indeed.
He will be featured later on in this
He's
show.
Poorly socialized. If you run into him, he was a pandemic dog. He's not very mannerly with other dogs.
Yeah,
so
sorry.
All 7 of us live in this barn in Chestertown, right behind the Evergreen Bakery. If you haven't seen it, peek around, have a look. Bob Behr has recently put new boards on the front.
Yes.
Looks much better than it did a few months ago.
He's been painting up there on the scaffolding every day,
all right.
Causing everyone on Queen Street a lot of stress. But there you go.
If you didn't know, this barn used to be a livery stable at one point. It was a candy shop at one point. It was a storage place
I don't know where Matthew's getting this information. I know it was a boat shop.
It's been a lot of things.
Anyway.
So now it's full of people.
Now it's full
no
of
more
people.
hay. All right. Instead of being full of hay, our hayloft is now full of Robbi's studio.
Yes.
Where we're sitting right now.
So we have this. That's actually the room that we're sitting in. I have all of this lovely space for my studio, and I spend most of my time sitting in the corner. Yep. I sit over here in this corner. This is my command center. So this is actually where we're sitting right now. I do most of my work on the computer. So I have 2 giant monitors, and I also have to my left there, it's basically a giant iPad. I can draw directly onto the monitor and it goes into the computer, which is extremely helpful and saves me a lot of time.
All right, so right over there in that direction through that wall is my studio. You can see this is an old barn. I've got these lovely beams in my space. I do all of my work on my computer because my handwriting is so terrible that I'm otherwise unable to read the thoughts as they emerge from my mind. So yes.
We actually started making books about 15 years ago.
Yes, and when we first started, I would write the books and Robbi would illustrate them, and there were no other people involved in the process. We would print them out on our own printer and staple them together and trim them on our dining room table. We were self-publishers for the good first chunk of our lives in Chestertown.
So for the first 10 years, we made about 70 books. We self-published about 70 books this way.
We've sold them at Bookplate ever since the very beginning.
Yes.
Tom took our very first book and put it on display and had us come give a talk in the back corner of the stacks, and 9 people came, and we thought we were very, very important.
It was the best.
It was very exciting.
It was the best.
Yeah.
All
right.
So yeah.
I want you all to know, this is a message we give to the kids, but I want you to know too, if you want to be a writer, you can be a writer. You can self-publish your own books. You can create your own stories. You are never too old for this advice. All of us are full of stories and narratives, and they must be shared with the world.
And in fact, the older you get, the more stories you get.
Indeed,
so
indeed.
You are, yes, everyone is full of stories. So we made a lot of connections. We sold these self-published books by going to book fairs, by, selling them directly to the people who are interested in buying them. And in the course of doing this, we ended up meeting a lot of people in the actual commercial publishing world. And that's kind of where we got our first big break, about 10 years into our self-publishing.
Yeah. So one day we met this person named Erin, a very nice woman. She was working at Little Brown, which is one of the big 6 publishing companies at the time. And she agreed to publish one of our books. We will tell you more about her later, but this was our big break.
Yes.
We can get into more detail about it if you want to in the Q&A.
So suddenly we had actual jobs as an author and an illustrator. And so this is a selection of our commercially published titles.
That first book, which was Babies Ruin Everything, led to the opportunity to make the book we're talking about today, which is Sunrise Summer. So
all right.
This
so
book
is actually different from the rest of our books because it actually is not a made-up story. The rest of our stuff is fiction. The person on this cover is actually me.
Yes.
And the other person is our daughter, Alden. So look, here we are. This is what it actually looked like in real life. It's kind of hard to tell that that's me because I always wear a hat when I'm fishing because of all the fish slime that's being flung about. And this is what I look like all summer long, wearing rubber pants, long sleeve gloves, heavy duty raincoat, and holding a fish.
All right, you're lucky that this is just a photograph. Fish slime and Robbi when she's fishing is a very stinky affair.
Yeah. And so you might all want to know what's going on. Why are you dressed like this? Where's the photo taken? What kind of fish is that?
Right.
Why are you wearing rubber pants?
To be honest, I ask myself these questions about Robbi a lot of the time. She's a very mysterious presence.
So here's the deal.
Yes.
Every summer since I was 18 months old, I have traveled to a remote part of Alaska to help run my family's commercial salmon fishing operation. So this is a photo of me. There I am. And my mom, Seiko. So many of you might have known my mom. And my older sister, Maiko, and my older brother, Roji. So this was our first summer back in 1977. That little tin shack in the background was the house that we lived in.
Yeah. So Robbi has gone to Alaska 43 times in her life. The first time she ever missed was last summer because of the pandemic. And now we take our own family up there every summer. And it's one of the things I love best about having married Robbi. I mean, in spite of all of the things that are very challenging about being your husband, going to Alaska
is really equally challenging. That's one of the many challenging things about being my husband.
It truly is.
So we are actually commercial salmon fishermen. So meaning this is our job. We're not just catching them with a fish hook. We're fishing with big nets and catching mass quantities of fish.
So every summer we take a little break from our author and illustrator life, and we spend about 5 to 6 weeks up on a very remote corner of the Alaskan tundra being fishermen instead. So this is not what I pictured I would be doing with my life when I was growing up in the suburbs of Kansas City when I was 17 years old.
You never said to your dad, John Swanson,
No.
I feel like I really need to be on the tundra in Alaska.
I did not. No, life is a surprising affair. But anyway, we want to tell you some of the things that are involved in the life of living on the tundra before we show you this book with you. So let's start with how hard it is to get there.
Indeed. So before you go on any trip, right, you have to pack.
Yes.
But the things that we bring in our suitcases aren't the things that one usually brings on vacation.
We don't even bring suitcases when we travel to Alaska. No,
because there aren't any grocery stores in our part of Alaska. We have to bring all of our fresh fruits and vegetables up with us so that we don't get scurvy. So instead of packing suitcases, we pack coolers.
So definitely fruits and vegetables, each individually wrapped to ensure their safe arrival on the tundra. But the most important thing we bring by far is approximately 20 pounds of butter.
Yes.
All right.
Can't leave without butter. Butter is delicious and it makes Robbi happy.
One summer we ran out of butter about 10 days before we left, and Robbi was so mad.
I was so mad.
Yes, all right.
If you notice that Redner's is low on butter the first week of June, that's my fault.
We get really conspicuous looks when we go shopping for this trip. So
obviously we can't actually bring enough food for 6 weeks just in our coolers. So we also ship a bunch of supplies up ahead of time in a huge barge that carries things like canned goods and pasta, dry goods, but also we bring up lumber that way. We bring up pickup trucks. My brother just did our shopping for the season in Seattle, and he packed up a giant bin and put it on a barge for us.
And it's on its way slowly
it's on its
to
way,
Alaska.
and it takes about 3 months to get there.
It'll be there when we get there. So getting packed is complicated, but it's actually a little bit easier than actually getting there.
Right. So when the big day comes, we haul our coolers and the kids to the airport, and we head out.
It is an incredibly long trip. As you know, we live in Maryland, which is about as far as you can possibly get from Alaska without leaving the United States.
That was a poor choice.
Yeah. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, thanks
All
a lot,
right.
Bob. So we have to take 4 flights in over 2 days.
Which means that we usually have to spend at least one night sleeping on the floor of an airport somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
So luckily, our yearly trips to Alaska have trained our kids to be professional sleepers. They can sleep anywhere. Unfortunately, Matthew was not trained this well as a child. He is an amateur sleeper.
It is hard to sleep when a child is trying to use you as a mattress.
So after our luxurious night in the airport, we wake up, we stop at the last McDonald's in civilization at the Anchorage airport and get Matthew some coffee.
Yes.
And then we get ready for the final stretch of our journey, where we get on a little bush plane because there isn't an airport on the other end. So
yeah, so the plane has to be small enough and light enough to actually land on the beach near our cabin.
Right. And the plane is so small that usually one of the kids gets to sit up next to the pilot.
Right. So that's our daughter,
Yeah.
Alden, who you saw on the cover in the illustration before. She's the main character of Sunrise Summer. And there's Jasper in the back. He does not get to ride in the front because he would push the buttons, which would not go well.
No,
So anyway,
he's not allowed
yes.
up front. He's not allowed anywhere near the instrument panel. So this little plane flies us over the final stretch of tundra, about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And so the tundra it's kind of, if you've never been, it's spongy and mossy. It smells like pine trees.
It's basically what Siberia is.
Yeah.
And it's right across the water from Siberia. It's
Yeah.
covered with lots of little streams and lakes. And there are a few bushes and trees here and there, but it's really flat and mostly just this low, spongy, mossy grass. And there are caribou and moose and wolves and foxes and bears in the tundra. And sometimes we'll see a moose standing in the middle of the lake as the plane falls over, because the lakes are about 3 inches deep. So it looks like this huge lake with a moose right in the middle. It's a little alarming sometimes.
So after about 20 minutes on the plane, we make it to the beach where our cabin is.
So on the left side there, you can see what was the start of our cabin. We've actually expanded it significantly since then. And then our neighbors are on the right. And there are a few hundred families that spend their summers living along this desolate stretch of beach, but none of them live there year round because it is so inhospitable in the winter that no reasonable person would want to stay there.
We did have an unreasonable person staying there for
Yeah.
a while. Our neighbor, who we sort of inherited when we bought our piece of land, did live there year round. He raised his 2 daughters there, and he recently passed away, but he was sort of a real old flint kind of guy.
There are only
Yeah.
3 hours of light in this part of Alaska in the summer, so in the winter.
In the
So,
winter, yeah.
So
You
that's
gotta
why.
be pretty tough.
Yeah.
And there's no place to buy anything. He just basically had everything that he could possibly need in his storage shed.
Yeah.
So anyway, before we land on the beach, the plane circles around once to make sure that nobody's down there on the beach walking around or driving around.
But if everything's clear, the
Mhm.
plane lands and we unload our coolers and we drag them up the hill. And
So finally, about 36 hours after leaving Chestertown, we're there. Yes, and this is our home for the summer. It's a little 3-room cabin on a bluff overlooking a bay.
okay, and once we're there, everything about life changes because everything is different on the tundra by design.
Yes, for example, our cabin is really different from our house at home.
It's kind of like a big tent made out of wood. There's no lights, there's no electricity, no shower, no toilet. It is very rustic. We love it, but it's a different way of living, especially for our kids.
Matthew just breezed through the part where there's no toilet, so
Yeah,
I'm just
right,
going to
right.
go back to that.
Yeah.
No, instead of a toilet, we have this fine little building up there, our outhouse.
It's a lovely structure.
That,
yeah.
you know, believe it or not, it's one of the nicer outhouses in the neighborhood.
Handmade hole dug by yours truly. to get water for cooking and drinking, we have to fill buckets and big tubs from a freshwater spring that's a few miles away from where we live. So we drive up there with our cart, we fill up our tap. It's kind of like getting water this way makes me feel a lot like my childhood idol, Laura Ingalls Wilder, Flinty Prairie Girl. That is kind of the ethos I embody when we're living up there on the tundra, is harnessing my inner Laura.
Yes. Well, luckily, we don't actually have to walk down to the creek to fetch our water, but we do need gas.
Yes.
To put into our four-wheelers and trucks.
But guess what? There aren't any gas stations up there
No.
either. So we had to make our own gas station. Yes.
This is our gas station.
Yeah.
So those are 50-gallon drums full of gas that we have to pump by hand.
And this is my father, John Swanson, valiantly pumping from the tub into the truck.
Yes.
I wish you could see his arm move. It's a lot of work.
It's actually a pretty good workout. It takes a long time to pump a truck's worth of gas into there.
So no electricity and plumbing also means no washer and dryer. So we wash our clothes in a tub of water and dry them on the clothesline. We try to only focus on the dirtiest things because it is a lot of work to do it this way. And in full disclosure,
I was going to say,
yes,
we tell the children that we do all the washing by hand, but I'm going to give you people the truth, in part because Matthew's dad and mom have both been up there and
they would rat us out.
They would rat us out.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. The cannery up the beach that we sell fish to now offers a laundry service.
Yeah.
And we pay an exorbitant fee to have our clothes cleaned once or twice
and
this summer.
They fold them so nicely too. Yeah,
yes, and they actually come out clean, where when we wash them, they come out filthy.
You're going to ruin our tundra reputation, Robbi. For the most part, we just smell really bad all summer long because cleaning clothes is too hard. And the second you put them on, they get dirty again.
But when everyone's stinky, no one's stinky, right?
That's the way that's the philosophy we live by. It's actually kind of true. So luckily, we do have a fully functional kitchen with a sink that uses a truck battery to pump water into the house from a big barrel that sits right outside the kitchen window.
And we also have a stove that runs on propane gas, standard operating stove.
If you are looking at those lovely, deep, rich red fillets, we eat really well up there, especially since we have fresh salmon to eat every single day.
Yes, indeed. That bowl of roe is probably worth,
oh my God, $500.
Probably worth a lot of money in Japan, but
we just throw it away.
We just chuck that stuff. We aren't the only ones eating salmon. No. One of the things that we have to look out for around the cabin are grizzly bears, who generally sleep out in the tundra during the day, but head down to the beach to fish at night.
Which is why we find their rather large, impressive paw prints in our driveway pretty much every morning. So one of my jobs, as I spent about 10 years as the tundra nanny when the children were small, not fishing as much and doing more of the domestic duties, I bang pots and pans together to warn the bears when any of us is heading out to the outhouse, especially in the dusky hours, because the bears are all over the place and they do not like to be surprised. So we need to let them know we're coming.
Indeed, because
Bob
Behr will tell you this story. When I was little, Bob Behr got stuck in the outhouse for longer than he wanted to because there was a bear prowling around who wouldn't go away. So you don't want that to happen.
No.
Here's a bear on our driveway. I think John Swanson might have been there when we took this picture.
The summer of the bold bear.
Yeah, the summer of the bold bear. There was a bear that summer that didn't know the difference between day and night.
Didn't get the memo.
Didn't get the memo that he was supposed to stay on the tundra during the day. So anyway.
So the point of all this,
yes,
we contend that you do not need roads or electricity or plumbing to have a good time. Even though life is very different in Alaska, we have a lot of fun, especially the kids.
Yes. Kids on the tundra. There's tons of space to run around. Not a lot of rules about where you can or can't go aside from the bears. There's no people peeking around the corner saying, who's looking after these children like they do in Chestertown.
Yeah, that's right. Up there, we don't look after them at all. The tundra does. It's nice and soft. If they fall down, they do not injure themselves.
They'll be fine.
It's like being on a big mattress.
Up there, of course, it's so far away from anything that there's really nowhere to get rid of things when they break. So there's all sorts of old buildings and trucks and rotted out boats to play on. Those are our playgrounds up there.
I would like to point that my father stacked that wood on the hood of that truck.
He did.
He was trying to clean up our construction site. He put all that wood there. Thank you, John Swanson. Thank you. Also, there are no rules about driving. So our kids all learn to drive basically as soon as their legs are long enough to reach the shift pedal, which is down by the feet. So you get to do things when you're ready to do them up there, not because of some arbitrary rule.
Yes. We adults spend most of our time fishing, but the great thing is that the kids just get to be kids. Here's Jasper on a particularly warm day at the beach, enjoying life, not at Ocean City, at a different kind of beach.
That tells you everything you need to know about Jasper. That is Jasper in a nutshell. It was very cold that day. Look how Robbi is dressed and look how Jasper is dressed. But He didn't want to hear it.
No, he didn't want to hear it.
Our daughter Alden is 13 now, but she spent every summer there with the exception of last summer since she was 3 months old.
When she was about 6 or so, she would come down to the beach on sunny days to watch us fish.
And then when she turned 9, she was finally big enough and strong enough and responsible enough to help us with the fishing. And now she's a full-fledged member of the fishing crew.
So to give you a sense of what that means, we're going to tell you a little bit about how the fishing itself actually works.
Okay, so the kind of fish that we are primarily trying to catch are called sockeye salmon, also known as red salmon.
Yes.
Yeah.
So sockeye are a lot smaller than the fish that I was holding in that first picture. That was a king salmon. The king salmon spawning run happens in early June, and our river doesn't have a giant return of king, so there's not really a fishery there, but occasionally we'll catch them. So that was a king salmon. We don't catch them very often, but we always take a picture to impress people when we do.
And when we do catch them, we catch them accidentally.
Yes.
They get really tired and they almost die, and they sort of float into our nets and they get caught by a tooth.
Yes, the
So,
kings are
yes.
actually very easy to catch.
They're very lazy.
Yeah, they're
Yes.
super lazy and tired by the time we get them.
So the only challenge is really that they're very heavy.
They're heavy,
So
and you
let-
have to get them out of the water.
Show them how strong I am. Look
Oh.
at this. Yes. This is the most magnificent picture of me that's ever been taken. Of course, we had to include it in this presentation so you can truly admire it.
Yes, I hope that you are all impressed.
Yes, thank you.
But I want you to
No,
know that
Robbie, no.
Matthew
No.
didn't catch this one. I caught this fish.
Ah.
Yeah.
All right.
So there
Robbie
you
caught it, but I definitely held it. There's no strings or anything holding it up. That's my muscles.
That's true.
All
That's
right.
true.
Yes.
So the sockeye that we catch are usually 3 to 4 years old. They are on their way back to the spawning grounds when we catch them. They've spent a couple years out in the ocean, and they weigh between 5 and 7 pounds.
And to give you a sense of the proportion of our industry, we catch about 10,000 of these fish every year. Robbie and her brother and a helper and I. So the 4 of us, sometimes 5 of us, catch about 60,000 or so pounds of fish a year.
Which is about 10,000.
Yeah.
And of those, I don't know, my brother obviously picks the most of them.
He's extremely mighty. Yeah. Do you guys want to see the picture of me with the big fish again before we leave this section of the program?
No, we don't need to. Okay, so back to fishing.
Yes.
There are plenty of people who fish in big power boats. That's a style of fishing called drifting. That's the one that most people have heard of, but we actually fish from the shore.
Yes.
We use these long nets that the fish swim into, and they get caught by their gills. So they're called gill nets. There's a cork line that floats across the top of the water, and then there's the net mesh that hangs down to the lead line, which is full of lead. That's why it's called lead line, and it's heavy, so it holds the net vertically in the water.
And the fish just swim into it.
Yeah.
They get caught, and then once they're caught, we climb into a little rubber Zodiac raft. We scoot ourselves along the net by pulling along with our hand, and we pull the fish out by hand.
And this is what we call picking the fish. It's pretty tricky, actually. The fish can get pretty tangled up in the net, so you do spend a fair amount of time untangling the fish.
All right, so we're going to talk to you about how Alden does this.
Yeah.
Once Alden has picked all the fish in the net, she pulls herself back into shore, and she takes the fish out of the raft and puts it into a big plastic container on the back of a cart.
And that plastic container has kind of a bag in it,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And so once the cart is full,
Wait, pause here for a second, because I think this is a pretty heroic photo of me. I like how my life jacket makes me look quite muscular.
I know,
right?
but that's all foam padding in there.
Yeah.
That's not your actual
All right,
muscles.
all right, fair enough. So
Um,
once the cart is full,
So this cart, I would say this is probably about 800 pounds of fish
Yeah.
in this cart.
okay.
So once the cart's full, Alden hops on the four-wheeler and drives the fish down the beach a little ways to a big, it's a delivery truck with a giant crane on it.
And so the crane has a scale attached to it, and they just weigh that bag, and they write down how much we've caught on a little piece of paper, and that's how we get paid.
We get
for being
paid
fishermen. We
According to the
possess
pounds.
the fish for a very short amount
Yeah.
of time. Yeah,
And the people who drive the truck, they don't keep the fish either. They drive it.
a few more miles
Mhm.
up the beach to a processing plant where it's cut into fillets and flash frozen. So frozen so fast into such cold temperatures that the freshness is really preserved, and then it's sent to markets all around the world. Many of them in Asian countries, I
Yes.
believe. Yeah.
Although we're getting more of an American market now. Americans are starting to pay attention. But I do want to say,
Yes.
if you have the option to get Alaskan salmon, wild Alaskan
Oh
salmon,
my gosh.
fresh or frozen, get it frozen.
Mhm.
Fresh means that it's been sitting.
It's not fresh.
It's not fresh. It's the least fresh.
Oh,
So
hot tip, our
Yeah.
friend Josh, who's
Yes.
a boat fisherman up there, has been coming to Chestertown every fall to sell the same kind of fish that we catch.
from the
but,
same bay.
but he has just started a business. So
Yeah.
he brings 50,000 pounds of it home every year, and he sells it across the East Coast. So pay attention, follow us on our social media channels, and you will be alerted when the fish is available each year. It is the best fish that you will ever eat.
Yes.
All right, I say that
And
with
he
confidence.
usually does deliveries sort
Like
of in October.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Commercial is over for now. We'll remind you again later.
But a lot of people, Chestertown's one of his biggest,
Big
his
hit.
biggest
Yeah.
hubs
Yeah.
for sales.
All right.
So anyway, the thing that we want you to know
Yes,
really
Robbi,
is
yes.
that fishing is really hard work.
Look how tired we are.
It's tiring.
Look
You
how
get
dirty we
cold
are.
and we get wet and we
Yeah.
get really dirty.
I
and
look less
stinky.
muscular in this photograph. I don't understand it. All right.
Sometimes the weather's terrible. Sometimes we have to fish for a couple days in a row without stopping to sleep or eat butter. It's really hard. It's really hard.
We don't not even get to decide when we fish. It is all based on the tides, which means sometimes we have to fish in the middle of the night. The Alaska Department of Fish and Game decides when we do and don't fish. So we listen to the radio for an announcement and we fish when they tell us to.
It is one of the very last sustainable fisheries in the world.
Yeah. It's really well regulated.
Really well regulated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no street lights up there. We have to use the headlights on our truck to be able to see what we're doing when we set up our nets at night. But luckily, because Alaska is so far north, it's only really dark for a few hours each night from about 1 to 4 in the morning. And most of that is kind of twilighty dark.
So for example, this is what it looks like at midnight. This
Yes.
is the beauty of the place.
Yes, that is why Alaska is called Land of the Midnight Sun.
Yeah.
But in winter, of course, that means that it's dark most of the time. So that's why we never go there in the winter.
All right. So you've heard a little bit about what it's like to live on the tundra, how the fishing works. We want to share our book with you.
Indeed.
All right. Are you ready? Well,
whether you're not ready or not, you're just going to have to follow along.
All right, Robbi.
So
yes.
Here we go.
All right. Robbi, you're going to read this?
Oh, I'm going to read it.
Here
I
you go.
forgot.
All right. So I'm going
You're
to
gonna switch
all right.
the-
So I'm going to have to look.
Okay.
Did you know you were going to get a children's book read to you today? Whether or not you
Sunrise
did. All right,
Summer.
Here we go.
It's summer again, my favorite time of year. Of course, there we are in front of our barn. If anybody
There we
wants
are.
to,
Look at that lovely barn.
I had to clean up the front yard a little bit for this illustration. I had to put some dirt in Doug's driveway so that it looked a little nicer.
Oh my God.
All right.
All right.
Some families pack swimsuits and sandals when they go on vacation. Mine packs onions and potatoes. Also doorknobs and batteries and spark plugs for a Ford F-150. Our trip takes 2 days and 4 flights and 4,000 miles. It's summer again, so we're headed to Alaska. Some beaches have boardwalks and lifeguards and smooth white sand. Our beach has pebbles and mud and upside down jellyfish. I use a stick to turn them upside up. Last summer, I picked tundra berries and made forts in Mole Kingdom. Last summer, I sat in the truck bed watching the fishing crew fish. This summer, I will join the fishing crew. Wait, I want to point out something in this
Uh-oh. What do you want to
picture.
show? Yeah.
This is a picture that Matthew gets offended by because
Oh.
look at me. I'm in the truck, like pointing people, telling people what to do, getting everybody
Taking charge.
taking charge and yelling at people. Matthew's over there going like, am I supposed to bring this rope?
But with the baby yanking on my leg. All right. All right. Just, you know, you got to do it when the illustrator
There you go,
speaks,
that's
you do
right,
what she says.
that's right.
Yeah. All right.
All right. While my brothers chase lemmings on the tundra and leap from rusted truck beds on the bluff and search for agates on the waterline, I will help twist 6-foot anchor poles into the sand. I will drag endless ropes through knee-deep mud. I will fetch water from the spring at Coffee Point. Mama says she thinks the fish are coming soon. Auntie Maiko says she saw belugas at high tide. Uncle Roji says, who wants a chocolate bar? People on the fishing crew get chocolate bars. Also, Uncle Roji's the cool uncle who lets my children eat chocolate bars.
Yeah. Only the ones on the fishing crew though, right?
That's right.
Yes.
Mama and I catch a ride across the river to check the mail in Igigik. 106 people live there in the winter when the fish are out to sea and it's only light 3 hours a day. In summer, the streets are full of people who come from far away to catch the fish and ship them somewhere else. Mama and I keep an eye on the river, waiting for the salmon to come. Until they come, we keep busy, mending the nets, repainting the outhouse, making a pie to thank Cody for fixing the truck. Then card games. Then we listen to the fish report. The salmon are coming, it says. We rush to the window. The salmon are here. Mama and I keep an eye on the moon. The moon shapes the tides. The tides say when we fish. The tides say that we'll fish at 4 a.m. Oh, I hate those ones. I really did. You picked that because that was the worst time to have to go fishing because you have to wake up at 2:30.
Yeah.
You get the most time in the dark. The alarm goes off at 2:30 a.m., but my brothers keep on sleeping. Breakfast is hot chocolate and cold curry rice. The fishing crew wears rubber waders and special gloves that come up past our elbows and woolly hats, even though it's June. We keep an eye out for grizzlies who sleep all day and prowl the beach at night. We start by stacking the nets. It's raining, but we don't even notice. We like it when the wind whips. We don't get nervous when the waves are high. We're here to fish. It's what we do. At 4 a.m. sharp, Auntie Maiko gives the signal. Uncle Roji pulls his raft into the waves. Mama drives the truck, which drags the net into the water. My job is tying the net to the rope. I've practiced and practiced the knot. But the tide is strong and pulling hard. The rope is wet and smells like fish. The mud is slippery and slick. That's why there's a fishing crew. The net fills up with fish. We pick the salmon out by hand. They're heavy and they're slimy, and I need both hands to throw them in the tote. I drive them to the buyer, and no one says I shouldn't or I can't. The rules are different here, just like everything else. Mama and I eat cold spaghetti on the bluff while rain blows sideways up our noses. It's what we do. Some people never get to see the sunrise over Bristol Bay. Some people don't get a second chance to tie their first knot. Some people never get to join the fishing crew. Those people are not me.
So that's the end of the actual story, but in the back of the book, there are 4 pages of biographical information, historical information, information about the native folks who were there before we were, who've been fishing the waters for thousands of years, information on how the fishing works, and a little bit about our family. So if you pick up a copy of this book, it also has a sort of an educational component that the reviewers and librarians have been really getting excited about.
They have liked that a lot. So you have read, we have now read the book. Now we're going to tell you a little bit about how we made the book. All right.
So first of all, I had to write the book.
Yeah.
And like we said at the beginning, this isn't the normal way I write books. Most stories are usually made up. Like in our book series, The Real McCoys, which is about a 4th grade super detective named Moxie McCoy, or a boy named Ben Yokoyama in our new book series, Cookie Chronicles, who takes the things he reads in fortune cookies way too seriously, or a boy who in our book, Everywhere Wonder, explores the world of his imagination through books. This book is actually about our real life experiences that I wanted to share with people. So I had to figure out what aspect of the many, many Alaska stories to tell. And I decided to focus on our daughter so that the kids reading it would have someone to identify with and talk about her summer as a member of the fishing crew, her first time, not just being a kid up there, but being a working member of the fishery, and how hard it can be and how exciting it can be to try new things and struggle to learn them, especially when you're really small and the work itself is really hard and challenging. So I typed and I typed and I thought, and I have to admit, this was not easy. There was a lot of information to fit into a short book, but finally I got a version of the story written that I was happy with. We sent it to Erin, who is our editor at Macmillan. She's published a lot of our other books. I said, look, I've written this perfect manuscript. What do you think? You won't want to change a single word. But that is not what happened.
That is not what happened.
No.
Erin is a nice lady. She didn't actually take his manuscript and throw it into the trash.
No, but she told me I had a lot of work to do. I will tell you that we wrote and rewrote this story about 4 different times together. She loved the first version. She thought it was beautiful. But in terms of actually telling a story in a picture book, there is such precision that is needed to use so few words to develop a theme and to create experiences that the kids can identify with. So it was a huge amount of work. It took me longer to write this book than it does for me to write a 30,000 word novel.
Yeah.
Because of the precision and care involved. So Erin and I spent a long time sending versions of the book back and forth. We finally got a manuscript we were happy with, and then it was Robbi's turn.
Yes. So the first step in illustrating a book like this is figuring out, well, the first step is telling Matthew that he better shape up.
She's smiling, but this is in fact an implied threat.
Look how terrified Matthew looks in this picture.
That is my worried look.
No, what we do is we go through the manuscript and basically section by section, we figure out what's going to go on each page.
Right. And we create a document that is called a storyboard. So each one of those rectangles represents a spread in the book. So 2 pages next to each other. And this is how we can show our editor and art director what Robbi is thinking before she spends the time actually developing the illustrations.
Right. And so these are this storyboard, these are very small drawings. These are called thumbnails. And you thumbnail stuff out first because you don't want to get tied up into details of things. You just want to give a real broad sense of what the pages are going to look like, because based on how the story flows, you might want a full page spread here and a bunch of little spots on the next page. So this is a good way to just see the whole book as one unit.
So once everyone's happy with it,
Yeah.
once Aaron's happy and we're happy, Robbi starts sketching. So making more developed versions of those little tiny thumbnails.
Right. So they're very quick. This is an early sketch, and you see that it looks nothing like what the final the final product ended up looking like. So I do have to do sort of a lot of figuring out at the beginning. What's it going to look like?
Because every book has its own style.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this part, Robbi has made 80 books over the past 15 years, and it is still very hard. This part of the process always makes Robbi very angry. I have to bring her lots of butter during this part of the process.
I still haven't learned how to do this in sort of a painless, effective way. So anyway, yes, one of the things, particularly for this book, that made my job slightly easier was that I could look at photographs of the things that I was actually trying to draw. So
yeah, so this is, remember the drawing from the book of Alden getting dressed to go fishing. Since we knew that Robbi was going to have to draw this,
right.
I took lots of pictures the summer before Robbi illustrated this book. And I just took pictures of all the steps of Alden getting dressed. And just an important thing to know, this is not cheating.
No,
this is how illustrators do their job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Illustrators are artists who care about time and money. And so anything that makes your job go quicker is totally worth doing. So I did, for this book, I used a ton of photo reference. That summer that we were taking the photos, Matthew spent the entire summer taking photos of everything.
Yeah.
So these photos turned into these sketches, which I did very quickly on my computer, just to sort of lay it out and see what it looks like. Here's the photo of everyone pulling on the loose rope.
Remember the heroic sunrise where they're fixing the rope after the little girl drops it. So yes.
This is the sketch that it turned into.
Yeah, and notice Robbi added an extra figure. She made the sky bigger. She put our cabin in the background. She's not supposed to make it look exactly like the photo. She's supposed to use the photo as reference to create the illustration that works best for the book.
Right.
Yes.
Because it doesn't need to be exactly accurate to the photo. And if it were exactly accurate to the photo, you would have seen that Roji, my brother in here, is actually yelling at Matthew to stop standing around taking pictures.
They needed someone to actually help with the rope. But I was very busy capturing the moment for the sake of art. I tried to explain that art was more important in that moment.
There's no swear words coming out of my brother's mouth in this picture.
So some of the illustrations did not come from photographs. And here's a prime example. I was not on hand to take a picture of the backside of a grizzly bear. I would not do that. No.
I'm glad that he wasn't taking pictures during this moment.
Yes.
But it is a moment that happened. So anyway, I sketched the entire book as quick drawings on my computer just to roughly show what I'm thinking the page is going to look like.
And then Robbi shows the sketches with someone else at Macmillan, our art director, Natalie. So she is like the editor for the illustrations. It's her job to help Robbi make them as good as they possibly can be, because like I did not get it right in my first draft, Robbi does not get the illustrations right on her first attempt.
Exactly. So in fact, in the sketch of the bear, she pointed out 3 things that would make it a better illustration.
Yes. She pointed out, first of all, that she did not believe anyone would be that calm if they were that close to a grizzly bear. She wanted Robbi to look a little bit more worried.
I mean, she was totally wrong. I was super cool and collected when this actually happened. I was like, hey, Bear, how's it going?
Yeah.
But Natalie wanted me to seem a lot more alarmed.
All right. So the second thing Natalie pointed out is that she wanted Robbi to add a beautiful reflection of the moon on the water, because moonlight is very beautiful and picture books should be beautiful. Right?
And her third point was that there should be something in the foreground here to make it clear that there was some distance between me and the bear and the 4-wheeler, and not that the bear was this gigantic bear. All
right. So look at the screen carefully. The revised version of this sketch looks like this.
Right. My arms are up. I'm like, oh my goodness, there's a bear.
Freaking out. Yes.
And then there we've got the moonlight on the water, right?
And then
And
finally, Robbi,
finally, I
yeah.
added those rocks in the foreground to make it better. And it made it better.
It's
Thank
better,
you, Natalie.
yeah.
So, you know, another thing that we try to tell kids is showing your work and getting feedback from other people is not a condemnation of what you've done.
No.
It can end up.
It's how professionals
helping.
do
It's
it.
how professionals do it.
Yeah, we
So-
need to collaborate and work together. So once Natalie's gone through all the illustrations and Robbi's fixed everything, it's time for the finals.
Yes.
Making things look good.
Yes. So I decided that I wanted this book, to be a combination of characters that I drew with an actual pen and ink and painted with an actual paintbrush, combined with landscapes that I collaged together on the computer. So I start my finals by inking all of the line work of the characters, which I do with the actual quill pen dipped into ink. It gives a sort of unpredictable line quality that you cannot get on the computer, no matter how hard I've tried. There's little splatters and there's little blurbs and blobs that make the line a lot more dynamic
terms,
and interesting. So so I use a quill pen. Then I paint it with, I use gouache. I don't use watercolor. Gouache is like a,
It's like a thicker
it's like an
watercolor.
opaque watercolor.
Yeah.
So it's watercolor for lazy people.
All right, so looking back, here's the sketch with
Right.
all the changes Natalie
Mhm.
suggested.
And this is in my computer at this point. The sketch is in my computer. Then I scan in the bear,
Yeah,
put the bear in there, and then I scan in my drawing of us on the four-wheeler.
right.
And then I start filling the background with shapes. This is all on the computer now from here on out. So here I have like the flat sort of shape of the water spaced out, and the grass and the beach. And notice that everything is just simple shapes, right? I needed to make the water look more watery, so I added some highlights and then that reflection of the moon that Natalie asked for. I also needed to make it look darker out. So in the computer, that's quite easy to do. I just put a layer over top of everything that's dark, and then I cut out the pieces of the light of the lit area so that the background shows through, right? So then the final piece is that I actually scan in a bunch of textures, painted watercolor textures that I want to apply to these flat areas of color. So pay close attention while I switch the slide, because it's a subtle change, but it makes it feel a lot different. So I don't know if you guys can see that. You can see that I've added the watercolor texture to all of these different shapes, right?
I consider it an unsubtle change. I think it takes it from something very flat to something rich and dynamic.
It does, but it's like, maybe it's not a subtle change, but it's a simple change. So here's the image of us pulling the net while we're tying the rope off, and then here's the final,
which I love, which is beautiful. So to finish the book, Robbi repeated this process 30 times. It took a long time, but we consider it totally worth it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know, I love Alaska so much, and I'm so happy that there's a book out there that captures what life there is like. But honestly, it never would have occurred to me to tell this story, because it's something that I do every summer. I don't think of it as particularly
I had to
interesting.
twist Robbi's arm to get her to believe that her experiences in Alaska were interesting enough to create a book about. I really did. Our editor said, yes, let's do it. And Robbi said, are you sure? And I said, yes, come on. So anyway, just remember, all of you, your lives are full of experiences too. You have stories to tell too. All right.
Yeah.
That's what we want everyone to know.
Write them down like Matthew does, illustrate them if you would, like I do.
Yes.
And, you know, share your stories with other people.
All right. Now, we told you
Yes.
earlier that you need to order fish. So we're going to tell you how to follow us on the social medias.
okay.
I know that you are sophisticated people
If you are
with
on
many
the
social
Facebook,
identities.
we can be found at Robbi and Matthew.
Also at YouTube, we are Robbi and Matthew. We do a
And-
video every day.
And then on Instagram, we're at Robbi.and.Matthew.
Bob needs to get an Instagram.
No,
That's what I
Bob's
think.
not going on Instagram.
All right. If you try to find us on our website, which is an admirable thing to do, do not put an E after Robbi's name, R-O-B-B-I. If you add an E, you will find yourselves here.
And these guys, this is a Canadian wedding band.
That's not us.
They don't want to talk to you about our books.
That guy's legitimately muscular.
I'm sure they're very nice people, but
Don't go there.
This is what our website looks like.
If you want to find us later on the website, it's a
Yes.
great place to order our books. It's a good place to learn more about us if you want to share our story with someone else. It's also a place if you want to recommend us to a librarian or a teacher for your grandchildren. We do school visits. We go right into classrooms through Zoom or in person, and we do presentations like we're doing today. Help spread the word if you can. We would love to do that in more communities. So that's what we got.
Yep.
We're going to,
I will quit sharing the screen. I don't know if what time
We
is
have
it?
15 minutes
We've
left.
jabbered for so
Yeah,
long.
I don't know. Should we skip drawing and just talk, or should
I
we do a
mean,
quick? We're gonna do a quick one.
We're gonna do
We're
a
gonna
quick
teach you in
drawing.
2 minutes
We
how to
told
draw
you,
a bear.
yes, it's
Get out
gonna
your
be
paper
very
and pencil.
quick.
No one is excused from this
That's
part of the
right.
assignment.
Thank you.
All right.
For a second, I
All right.
thought you were suggesting.
No,
that
I'm not
people-
suggesting anything.
All right.
I wanted to create a little bit of panic. in your
Okay,
heart,
so
but-
get your pencils and your drawing instruments and paper out, and we're gonna draw a bear. So I have this little tutorial how to draw a bear. First off, start out by drawing a chubby sock, just like this. All right.
That's a pretty chubby sock.
That's
you
a
just
chubby
made there,
sock.
Abby.
There
All
you
right.
go.
All right.
Pretty simple. Then we are going to put an oval in the toe part of the sock, right there. And we're going to color that in.
All right.
You can be as thorough or as unthorough as you would like with your coloring. Step number 3, we're going to draw eyes in the ankle part of your sock. Now, you have lots of options for drawing eyes. So you can just draw little dashes like that. That's how my eyes often look when I draw them. But you could also draw little circles with dots in them like that. That, makes your bear look a little bit googly sometimes. Or, you could draw sort of angry eyes, little hanging orange slices with dots in them. That's a fierce looking bear. All right. So choose whatever kind of eyes you want to draw, then add some eyebrows. Eyebrows also are the most expressive part of an illustrated
Here, show how
illustrated
angry you
face.
can make that bear.
I'm going to make
Yeah.
this bear angry.
Yeah.
Just by adding sort of
That's like the
angry
fierce bear that freaked you
eyebrows.
out on the beach.
Yeah, that bear did not freak me
Yeah,
out.
it
I was
did.
perfectly calm.
No.
But I'm going to make this maybe I'll make it a little sly
Okay.
bear.
That's like
All right.
detective bear.
That's step 3. Step 4, we're going to add lips and a teeth by from the center of the oval, the nose, we're going to make a J. Burp.
Yes, good.
And then from that same spot, we're going to make a backwards J.
Very nice, Robbi.
All right.
All right.
And you can add teeth if you'd like.
Well, since yours is so fierce and sly, he
Yes.
needs teeth. Yeah.
And then the last little bit is to add ears at the top of your sock on either side. Just little ear shapes, semi-circles, sort of. And then you're done.
All right.
You all have drawn a bear. Now, the nice thing is you can kind of take this template and you can do lots of different things with it. If you want to make your bear a little bit furry, you can add some fur there. You can add some fur on the ears.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
How about what kind of hair? We could give him a hairstyle.
Give him a, I don't know, a little comb over.
A little comb over?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. He's got some bear bangs.
He's got some bear bangs.
Yeah. I like it. Totally changes his look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can do lots of different things with your bear. You can draw a whole family of bears.
You can
You
create
all-
stories out of your
Yes,
bears.
you could
can
write
create a mini comic out of your bears.
A whole book series about this bear.
All right.
So there we go.
Next year, this time, you can be presenting on your book about
Yes.
bears on WC All. All right. So we are going to, do we have any
Yes. Let's see in the chat.
asterisked comments now?
Somebody has said, is this being recorded for future viewing? I believe that it is recording.
You will
I
have
don't know
to, you'll
how.
have to ask Hanson.
Yeah, I don't
He's the
know.
man in charge of
Yeah,
the things.
it is recording.
Oh,
Okay.
excellent. All right.
Yes.
So
Somebody asked.
do the salmon get to spawn? So this is a really great question.
Yes.
And this is when we were talking about being a regulated fishery. So go ahead.
So we
Yeah.
are fishing across the mouth of a river that then goes up into the spawning grounds. So the fish that we catch are not going to spawn. Once they spawn, their flesh gets rubbery and it starts rotting. It's no good. So we catch them before they spawn. And the way that the fishery is regulated is that they count the fish as they go up into the river system. And they know that the river system can support a certain number of fish being up there and coming back out. So they want 1 to 2 million fish to go upriver, and they allow them up at different stages so that there's sort of a staged flow of fish into the river system. That allows for us to catch the remainder of the fish. So they have it regulated so that there's, of course, I don't know these numbers.
I think their goal is 1.2 million fish going up the river, and we catch about 9 million fish.
Yeah.
So we catch almost 90% of the fish that there are. But if we did not catch them, there would be a real problem because the fish would lay too many eggs on top of each other. So it's this very delicate balance. The biologists count the fish. every night or 4 times a day at 9 in the morning, noon, 3 o'clock, and 6 p.m. They make announcements about the status of the fishing. They tell us exactly the moment at which we can start fishing. If you put your nets in the water 30 seconds early, you get fined $5,000. So it is very, very high stakes that we fish exactly when we're told to.
Yes.
It also means that sometimes we go a week without fishing if the salmon are late, and sometimes we might fish 28 consecutive tides, as we've done before, if the salmon are coming fast and furious and they need us to catch most of them.
Yeah.
So it's unpredictable, and it's part of why it's so exciting and
Yes.
sometimes very challenging.
So another question is, I've recently heard that salmon are somewhat endangered. True, question mark. In our rivers, I mean, part of what would endanger salmon, Atlantic salmon, I think are dying out. It's the wild Pacific salmon is the last
Truly sustainable fishery.
Truly sustainable fishery. So they are endangered in the sense that all of the oceans are getting warmer and it's starting to be problems in multiple ocean ecosystems. Our particular bay is still having great returns. The fish, because it's so well regulated and so well managed, we're still doing well. But it all depends. The last 2 summers that we were there have been very hot, and that causes lots of problems. The last summer, so 2019 was the hottest summer on record, and they were finding that the river systems where the fish spawn, the water was getting too warm and the fish weren't actually laying their eggs. So we'll see in 4 years when those fish were supposed to return, we might have a bad return because they didn't actually lay the eggs that they were supposed to. So
the reason we don't eat the roe, as somebody asked, is that
Robbi doesn't like them.
Because Robbi doesn't like them, and Roji doesn't like them, and there's a very specific process to cure them. You don't just eat them raw; you cure them with sake and vinegar and a couple of other things. And nobody bothers to do it, even though Matthew likes eating the roe, because
you're welcome to prepare the roe yourself.
Robbi also has to harvest the roe. It doesn't. The kind of salmon that we catch, red salmon, actually does not deliver the high quality roe. Interestingly, there's a kind of salmon that is so disrespected that it's called dog salmon.
Because you're supposed to feed it to your dogs.
Right.
That's what the natives did. They fed it to their dogs.
And that's where the nice big roe comes from.
They have very big roe, and we catch dogs as a sort of a bycatch for the sockeye.
Meaning it accidentally.
Yeah, but they're hard to sort. Even the buyers don't know the difference between sockeye and dogs. So they just say that we think that there's going to be a 2% bycatch of dogs this year, and they just add it into our
or subtract it
out of our pay. But they actually get paid really well for the dog roe. They have specialists. It's a top secret way to process roe that the Japanese will not. It's a proprietary process, and so the fishing companies bring in Japanese fishing industry people who know how to do it, and they secretly prepare all the roe, and there's stacks and stacks and stacks of roe in the cannery, but that we don't get paid for, but that somebody's getting paid a lot of money for.
Michael asked, did Alden have any input into the writing and illustrations for this book? No, Michael, she did not. Children have no personal agency. They should never be allowed to make important decisions. No, I didn't involve her in this. I mean, and to a certain extent, this book it reflects experience and Alden's experience, but it's not strictly autobiographical for that reason. It's based on actual events, but I'm the person who wrote it, so Alden is not named, and we don't want her to have to own the specifics of the book. It's loosely based on history. What else? How did your family come to, what's that?
Come to have a run? So this is a funny story.
They're actually on here.
I think Bob is on here, but I'm not sure Bob knows how to unmute or any of the things. So my dad, there was a family in Chestertown, the Allspocks, who used to live up on Cannon Street. I don't know if anybody here has been around long enough to have known the Allspocks, but Cynthia, yes, of course, Cynthia knew them. And so Mrs. Allspock lived on Water Street, and her son he worked in Alaska teaching for a little while. There used to be a program, I don't know if he was part of this program, but there used to be a program to teach in the bush in Alaska. They would pay teachers from the lower 48 very good salary to go up and teach kids in Alaska in the bush. And so he met a woman up there, they got married, they moved back to Chestertown to live, but they would spend summers fishing with her family up in Alaska. So then, let's see, one day, I guess the legend goes that one day my dad was scraping a piece of quarter round on our front porch. And quarter round, if any of you know, is that very inexpensive piece of wood that goes around the molding. It sells for like 3 cents a foot or some ridiculous cheap amount of money.
But
Bob wasn't going to spend that 3 cents a foot. He was going to scrape that and reuse it. And so Mr. Allsbach was walking by and he said, any guy who's going to scrape a piece of quarter round
is just crazy enough to thrive in Alaska.
To go to Alaska.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he at the time was looking into buying a piece of land so that his family could have their own plot up in Alaska. And they ended up, my dad bought into the piece of land and they split it. So that's how we got in. And then we fished for their family for the first season. And then I think the second season, Mom and Dad got their own permits.
It's a limited entry system. So you can't just go up there and fish because you feel like it. There's a certain number of permits that allow people to fish in the district. Our family owns a certain number of them. If you want to get one, you have to buy it from someone who's currently part of the fishery. They don't add more. So it's actually, it's like having a taxi medallion. Yeah. You can't be part of it unless you have that piece of certificate. So that's why I think it's so crazy that I, son of the prairie, Matthew Swanson, I'm a licensed commercial salmon fisherman because I'm part of this wonderful family. Somebody asked,
what is the range?
Are we taking our dog this summer? We are, and we're very worried about the process of getting that dog up there. But he will. Yeah, we're
gonna have to really knock him out for the trip.
Yeah,
I don't know. He's gonna be terrible.
He's a dog designed not to thrive in cold weather. So I don't know. He's a ridiculous creature. We'll bring him in a minute if you want to see him. What's the range of tide levels? Great question.
That is a great question. We are sort of at the mouth of this river, and the differential is about 26 feet. Yeah. So that's why we can fish from the shore, because basically at low tide, there's no water. So we can set out our lines and our anchors and everything that we need to set up. And then as the tide rushes in, it fills up to the spots where our nets would go in. And then the tide will go back out again and we can pick up nets.
And so one of the great dramas of being up there is listening to Roji and Robbi guess about how fast the tide's going to come in and where to put our nets on the beach based on their guess. Because we set our nets out an hour before we start fishing. So you always have to guess how far the tide is going to come up. And whether it's
how fast the tide is moving, if the wind is blowing it in, if the wind is blowing it out.
And they've been doing it for 40 years and they never know. It's great. I love it. Yes, I stay out of it.
I want to show you my bear.
Oh, very good. Yeah, everybody hold up your bears. Come on, hold up your bears. Let's see them.
I'm gonna unspotlight us so everybody can see everybody's bears. Hey, you guys did great.
That's my bear.
All right. Oh, there's Sita. Hi, Sita. All right. Thank you, everybody, for drawing with us. That's wonderful.
Well done.
All right. Any other questions while we are still together here today? Anything else?
Yeah, I have a question.
All right, Hanson.
Is your place near Bristol Bay, or
it is in Bristol?
In Bristol Bay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's an inlet of Bristol Bay.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a bunch of different districts up there. Ours is called the Igigik district because there's a native village called Igigik. That's what we showed in the book that has about 100 year-round residents. There's a nearby district called Naknak. There's the Kodiak, the Agushik. There's all sorts of different, and when we listen to the radio, they make the announcements by district. So we have to make sure we pay attention to which, and the times are all different based on the districts.
Yeah. Any other questions, anybody?
I saw Kathleen raise her hand. Was that a hand raise?
Hi, Kathleen.
Oh, you have to unmute yourself. Sorry.
Well, do you ever hire out as an illustrator for other people?
No, I don't. Matthew keeps me so darn busy that I don't actually. I used to do some like magazine illustration work and stuff, but I don't.
Our current book series, the new one, Cookie Chronicles, we started with 3 books and they've been successful enough that they've commissioned 2 more books. So Robbi's illustrating books 4 and 5. We have the next book series that we're working on after that already in play. And we're also currently right now working on pitching a TV show. So if that actually happens, we're going to be very busy on that front too. So no, we are for the foreseeable future. Robbi's time is claimed.
I'm afraid I'm a little booked.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you. But there's places. Okay. There's ways to find illustrators who aren't Robbi. So write us an email and we can help you with that if you're looking for someone.
Well.
Oh, dog. All right. We'll go get the dog. Yes.
I can answer questions while Matthew's gone, if anybody else has a question. Anne, are you raising your hand or are you typing? Maybe that was typing. No more questions?
Robbi, any more Moxie books coming up?
It's interesting. Our editor at Macmillan left Macmillan, and so the Moxie books are sort of like in a.
There's not likely to be more.
Yeah, which is too bad because I really like them, and a lot of people really did like them. But
The best chance for them having a future is that our future book series become very popular, and there becomes an interest in a market for our backlist.
Yeah.
So that's what it's called in the publishing industry. I've written book 4. I always sort of don't ever want to be caught in the lurch. So it's ready to go if anybody ever wants to publish it. So we'll see. But we have so many ideas moving forward that we are not for want of projects.
yes.
Anyway, this is
This
he.
is
This is
Dumbles.
Dumbles. All right, Dumbles is a main character in Cookie Chronicles. So he is named after, this is life imitating art, to be sure. Oh, yes, buddy. All right.
Well,
Anything else we can help you with, folks?
thank you both for a very fascinating story. And
Hey, you bet.
it is just great. I think it's time to wrap this up, and
Okay.
thank you again.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Oh,
Thank
wait.
you, guys. That
Can
was
we put the link to
wonderful.
getting the book?
Oh yeah. Sorry.
So if anybody wants to get a copy of Sunrise Summer for grandchildren, donate to a school or library, you can get them at the book plate in Chestertown. As of next Wednesday, there will be signed copies available there. If you want to ship them to somewhere elsewhere in the world, Robbi just put a link in the chat, which is to an independent bookstore in Rosendale, New York. Our friend here sells signed with a book plate copies. So if you
Where's
want to
the-
send them to someone who is not here, it's a little illustrated panel that Robbi designed that we signed, and then our friend Jesse will send anywhere in the country. So
The other thing that we are doing and have done.
yes,
Here's the book plate in case anybody cares.
yeah, it's a nice little.
It's just a
yeah.
little.
So there's
thing.
one of those affixed to every book
Yeah.
that Jesse sells.
And another thing that we have done, if people are interested, we've had people buy a complete set of books for a classroom of students, and then we will go in and do a talk for the classroom. So a lot of grandparents have been doing that for their grandkids' classrooms. If you decide to do that, contact us directly so that we can get you so that you're not ordering straight from a bookstore, so that
We'll
we can
take care
get
of
you a
the
little bit of a
logistics.
discount. Yeah.
All right. Thank you,
All right, well,
friend. Thanks for
so
spending this
much.
time with us.
All right,
you.
bye-bye.
All right.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Fantastic.
The
Thank
library
you.
should have them,
Yeah.
but they don't have them yet.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. Nice to see you guys. Thanks, Bob. Bye, everyone. Thank you. Bye, Sita. See you, Sita.
Bye.
Bye.
Good to see you.
Hmm. There's
Oh,
Bob
yeah,
hanging in
Bob's,
there.
Bob's still hanging in. Oh, and my friend Bill Lowe. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Bill. Bye, friends. Maybe Bob's gonna hang
Yeah,
out.
we'll see.
To the bitter end here. All right.
Are we hosting? Oh, I guess we're the people who have
Oh,
to
so we
hang
have
up.
to
I
hang up.
forgot
Okay.
because everybody else is gone.
Bye,
Well,
everyone.
Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much for coming and staying
Bye.
with us. Bye-bye.
Hello.
Bye.